Hey, what's up guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. This is part 2 of the songwriting series. So over the course of this last week, I wrote the song. It's called Dark Harmonies, and I made sure to use every single concept that I talked about in part 1 into this song. So you're going to see how all of this theory stuff actually applies. So make sure to review that part 1 before watching this video because you may not understand some of the stuff that I'm talking about. So this video here, we're going to look at structure, we're going to look at rhythmic effects, we're going to look at layering, we're going to look at harmonies, and we're going to look at transitions. So at the core of any song, at the foundation of any song, things are usually a lot simpler than they appear once you start adding in all these different layers and different elements and stuff like that. But at the core, the structure is usually very simple, and that's what I want to get across in this video. So let's get started by first looking at the structure of this song. So the song really only has two parts. We're going to call it part A and part B. The song is further divided into 6, you can call them sections, but you're going to see how part A and part B are really the only two actual parts of the song. So let's look at part A. So part A consists of 4 chord progressions, and there's a pattern to it. So it goes like this. It goes 6, 1, 5, 4. And then it goes 6, 1, major 3, 4. And then 1, 5, 2, 4, and then 6, 1, major 3, 4. So that's part A. So part B is just 3 chords. So part B is a 6, 2, 4. So part B sounds like this. So those are the only 2 parts of this song. There's a part A and a part B, but the song is 3 minutes and 15 seconds long, and each of these parts has a bunch of different extra stuff added to it to make the song sound like it's interesting. So as an instrumental songwriter, I really have to keep the song moving in a forward manner. I'm not really telling a story with lyrics, so it's very easy for the listener to get bored. So I try to write these songs such that the music is enough to keep the listener interested. But that doesn't change the fact that it's still just 2 parts. There's still just a part A and there's a part B. That's the structure of the song. Even when the key change kicks in halfway through the song, it's still just part A at that point. So we're in a different key signature now, but using your circle of fifths to help you determine which chords have which Roman numeral applied to them, you can play the same chord progression in any key. So I played the first half of this song in the key signature of D minor / F major, and then I played the second half of the song in the key signature of E minor / G major. Again, part A, part B, and then the rest of the song in the new key is all part A. So that's the structure of the song.
All right, so for the rest of this video, I'm going to be working in Reaper. Reaper is the digital audio workstation that I use. And if you're completely new to the concept of digital audio workstations, I have a couple videos about how to use these things below. I'll post links below. But it's a lot easier to visualize and see how a song is put together and how a song is structured when you see exactly what is done on the computer. So these are the 6 sections of the song. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then going this direction, these are the different instrument tracks. So there's a bunch of different instrument tracks, a lot of layering and stuff going on. So this part is part A. This is part A. This is part B structure. This is part A structure, and then part A structure. So even though there's 6 sections, there's still just the part A structure and the part B structure of the song. So right now I just want to talk about how rhythm affects everything. So let's first listen to just the click track alone. This is set to a tempo of 140 BPM. So this is the tempo of the song. All right, so you hear it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the drum beat, I wanted the kick to land on the 1 and then the snare to land on the 3. So I want it to be kick, snare, kick, snare. I also could have done kick on the 1 and 3 and then snare on the 2 and 4, but that would have sounded like kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. So that would have been not the vibe that I'm going for. So let me just bring the drums in, and I want to play them along with the click track here. So I'll solo these out. So there's a little bit more going on with the kick. So it's actually kick, snare, kick, 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 snare, kick, snare, kick, 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 snare. But it's a lot different than kick, snare, kick, snare, which would have added a totally different vibe to the song. So that's the at the foundation. That's the rhythmic structure on the very first level. But then I did a couple other things that add rhythmic effects here, such as using some synthesizers. So this synthesizer here goes like this. So I actually programmed that using what is called automation, and automation is a topic for another video, but I automated a knob on the synthesizer that I use, and it's called the cutoff frequency knob. So if you automate that knob, it gives that wow sound. So every time you turn the knob, it goes wow, wow, wow. So I programmed that knob to the rhythm and the click such that it goes 1, 3, triple lit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, 3, triple lit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So that's the count. So that's going with the click track. It's like this. So the drums programmed like that sets the vibe of the song with the kick on the 1 and the snare on the 3, and the kick's doing a little bit more, but at the foundation it's just a 1, 3, 1, 3. It's called halftime. So bringing in some other synths that are also programmed using automation, you have this. So these are timed to 16th notes as well, and they line up right with the click also. So that is the rhythmic aspect of the song. So then when you get to this part of the song, which is the heavy solo, which again, the foundational structure, it's following the part A chord structure. The drums are still the same. also add in another synth here. So adding in this other synth is going to give an even more of a driving rhythm effect to it. So let's hear this. So all these synths are really adding a lot to this rhythmic effect, but still the drums are doing the 1-3 kick, snare, and whatever's layered on top of that is just adding to that vibe. But the vibe would be completely different. It was kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare. Keep that in mind, understand that. So that's basically all there is rhythmically going on in this song, and what I want you to understand about how that affects the vibe of the song. Let's now look at layering. So now I want to talk about the concept of layering and how important it is to making a full sounding production of a song. So this is very, very important to understand. So when people are listening to a song, they don't realize how many layers are involved, but this is the details that you as a songwriter are definitely going to want to pay attention to. So just going through section by section, I just want to show you how the different layers added on to things really make a different impact. So just soloing out just the guitar parts, I have the same guitar part played twice. I put one in the left ear and I put one in the right ear. I actually played the part twice, recorded the part twice, so it adds kind of a natural chorus effect, so it sounds like two guitar players are actually playing it. So one's in the left, one's in the right, it sounds like this. So that doesn't sound bad, but let me now add in this layer, which is just a simple synth. So you can see how much of a difference having that synth in there really makes. So that's one thing, that's a very subtle thing. Let's move on to section 2 and see how the layers are affected here. So there's a solo guitar here. Let's hear that. So that is the solo guitar, but I also have another layer called guitar swells. So let's hear how it is with the swells. So just adding in the swells, having that synth there, having the doubled guitar parts plus the lead. Right there, there's 5 layers to just this one part. Removing any one of those layers, it's going to be noticeable if I remove any one of them. All right, so then you can see that once we get to here, more layers kick in. So right here, this is halfway through this chord structure. This is still the part A structure. So this is the second half of this part A structure, and this is where the bass kicks in and harmony guitar kicks in. So without all that stuff, adding in harmonies. Okay, now adding in the bass. It's all subtle things, so just that bass alone really kind of just thickens things up really nicely. And once we get to this section here, which I'm calling the bass section, this is following the chord structure, the part B chord structure, which just has that 3-chord sequence going on. It's just a D minor to a G minor to a B flat major being played throughout this whole entire part. But let me just kind of walk you through and show you how the different layers sound. I'm just going to kind of play it and then add layers as the part goes on. So I have the drums here. And then I have the just the rhythm guitars part soloed out now. So let's hear this. see that these different layers, I have two different kinds of basses going on here. One's EQ'd low, mid, and then high, and then I have another bass. It's called the synth bass. I have a low version, a mid version, and a high version, so I can mix them all separately and really have total control over my bass sounds. That's why there's 8 different tracks for bass, so I can really dial in the bass exactly like I want. But then, adding in the synths and stuff like that, all of that stuff, it just adds to the fullness of the song. So that is layering and how important layering is. So now I want to talk about harmonizing guitars, and I actually made another video about this, and I'll post a link to that below, so I'm not going to go super in-depth into this topic, but just a rule of thumb is that if you have 2 guitars harmonizing, you want one of the guitars to be focusing on landing on either the root or the 5th of the underlying chord, and then you want the harmonized guitar to be landing on the 3rd of the chord. So within these chord progressions, each chord, whether it's a major chord or a minor chord, each chord only consists of 3 notes. So you have each of the 3 notes is a root, a 3rd, and a 5th. For minor chords, it's root, a minor 3rd, and a 5th. But it's still just 3 notes for each chord. So guitar part number 1 is playing around in key, playing the key scale, attempting to land on chord tones. Guitar number 2, the harmonized guitar, is doing the same thing, playing around in the key scale, attempting to land on chord tones. But when you land on those chord tones, as the chord change occurs, you want to either have a root and 3rd together with the 2 guitars, or you want to have a 3rd and a 5th together with the 2 guitars. If you have a root and a 5th together with the 2 guitars, it's not going to sound bad. It's still going to be in key. You're still going to be landing on chord tones. It's just not going to give you that beautiful harmonized sound that you hear with good harmony guitars. Iron Maiden style, all kinds of metal harmonies and stuff like that. It's always root 3rd or 3rd 5th. It's not much root 5th. Root 5th creates power chords. So let's just kind of walk through all these parts. So here's the first part. This is following chord structure A, part A. The harmony kicks in halfway through this section. So let's listen how these 2 guitars sound together. So it doesn't matter which guitar is playing the root or the 5th. It doesn't matter if it's higher or lower. One guitar player could be playing 3rds down all the way down here. The other guitar player could be playing a root all the way up here. But it's still the fact that one is playing a root and the other is playing a 3rd, or one is playing a 5th and the other is playing a 3rd. Whether it's above or below, it does not matter. So when I was writing out these harmony lines, one guitar player may be starting out under the first guitar and then moving to higher than the first guitar, but still abiding by that root 3rd or 3rd 5th principle the whole time. That's what keeps these harmonies sounding melodic. So then moving along over to this heavy solo section, this is again following chord structure part A. The harmonies kick in halfway through again, just like over here. And let's hear how those sound together. So we'll solo those 2 tracks out. So you can hear sometimes one of the guitars may be moving in a downward direction and another guitar may be moving in an upward direction. But when the chord change occurs, it's always abiding by that root 3rd or 3rd 5th principle. So then when we get to here, this is where the key change occurs. The harmonized guitars are happening the whole time, so let's hear how that sounds. So let's now listen to the acoustic harmonies here. So the last thing I want to talk about in this video is transitions, and this is something that's very subtle, but it makes a huge impact on the smoothness of the song. So this is something that the average listener is definitely not going to notice, but you as the songwriter, you really want to kind of pay attention to these subtle details because it's going to make the song sound that much more professional. So let's just look at the transition from each of these parts. Part 1 to part 2. There's not really much of a transition here. It just kind of repeats the same rhythm section over, but then adds a solo. So let's hear how that part sounds. So not really much of a transition there, but transitioning halfway through this part, you play the first half of this chord progression part A, and then you come to this part. That's where the harmony and the bass kicks in. So that has kind of a cool transition feel. All right, and then going from this part to this bass section part, there's actually a very important transition here, and it's simply just a 4 count of silence. So that 4 count of silence makes a big difference. So let me show you what I mean. Actually, I want to put the click track on, and let's listen to that transition. Alright, so just that 4 count of silence right there makes a huge difference. So if I didn't have this 4 count of silence here and it just went right from here right into the bass section, next section of the song, it may have sounded okay. Rhythmically it still would have worked, but it wouldn't have had the same effect as just adding that 4 count of space. That 4 count of space just adds a little bit of dramatic effect before kicking in with the next part. Alright, so really feeling that space is just a very subtle detail, but it goes a long way. So let's look at transitioning here. Transitioning from the bass section into the heavy solo section, you can see that the rhythm guitars actually kind of bleed over. So just playing the rhythm guitars, or playing the guitars. Alright, so adding all that in there. Because that chord right here, this is a D minor chord. The chord structure of this part is D minor, G minor, B flat, D minor, G minor, B flat. So it's going around, and it's as if it was starting back over on the D minor chord here, but it's also the same start of this next section, which starts on the D minor chord as well, so that transition works. Alright, and then moving along, once the harmonies kick in here halfway through, rather than just kicking in here, which is exactly the halfway point, so there's a little lead-in right here. So this subtle little lead-in. Alright, so very subtle. This would be the 1. So this little piece right here is just the lead-in, leading into the next section, leading into the 1, 2, 3, 4 of the next half of this section. So the last transition here is right here, going from the key change part, the solo part, into the acoustic part. There is a 2 count of space where it's just doing this. So everything drops out. So it could have dropped out right here on the 1, but I think it sounded cool just adding in this little transition right there. And the reason I like that is because it's going on throughout the whole entire song. So take us to the this part. It's still doing that. So it's kind of buried under all the other stuff that's going on, but it's still there. So you still are hearing it, you're just not realizing that you're hearing it. So that thing is going on, and then once we're at this part, it's still going on. Alright, so just that right there, just that little piece and everything dropping out, leaving the 3-4 of the 4 count of the click. Very, very subtle transition, but you know, these are just the kind of things that piece all the sections together to make the song sounding professional. Alright, so, you know, the structure foundationally of this song, it really just has the part A chord structure and the part B chord structure. So it's part A, part A, part B, part A, part A, part A. So structurally it's very simple, but you add in, you know, the rhythm, you add in the layers, you add in, you know, the harmonies and stuff like that, you add in these transitions, put this all together with all these different tracks, and it's going to sound like a lot more is going on than just a simple A, B chord structure. So that's basically it for the this songwriting tutorial. Hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions, comments, or requests, feel free to ask, and I'll gladly try and help you out. Thanks a lot.